ceremonies, Nathan Cassar.
Well, welcome, and get ready to satisfy your sweet tooth and dive into the delectable world of wedding cakes this episode on the Justice Plan TV and podcast show. I'm your host and connoisseur of celebrations, Nathan Cassar, and joining us today is the talented Amanda O'Driscoll, the creative genius behind Amanda Bakes. Now, Amanda's journey into the world of baking is as delightful as her cakes themselves. With a passion for baking passed down through generations, she's honed her skills over the years, working in bakeries and mastering the art of cake decorating. But it was a twist of fate during the lockdowns of 2021, which I'm sure we all are very happy to forget, that led Amanda to turn her love for baking into a thriving business, one delicious cake at a time. But Amanda's talents don't end with her cakes. As a new mum, she's inspiring others to pursue their passions while juggling the joys of motherhood. And when she's not busy whipping up confectionery masterpieces, you'll be finding her hitting the gym or volunteering as a scout leader. Now, today, Amanda will be sharing her expertise on all things wedding cakes, from what goes into crafting a custom cake to the ingredients of a perfect confection. She'll reveal the secrets behind creating a show-stopping centerpiece for your big day. We'll also explore unique cake ideas, from edible keepsakes to stunning floral arrangements, and uncover the reasons why wedding cakes are worth every penny. So, if you're ready to indulge in a mouth-watering conversation and gain insight into the art of cake decorating, you are on the right channel. Amanda, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. That was a great intro. I think I need to update my I might get you to update my website. That was
Sure,
fantastic.
absolutely. Be more than happy to. I believe that in Australia, actually, it's funny. When I entertained overseas for a number of years in the States, and people in the States, look, they're great at selling themselves, and it's something that audiences really appreciate as well. So when I came back and I realized that I had to sort of Australia with the whole tall poppy syndrome and whatnot, it was often a little challenging to at the beginning. I had to sort of find my groove in terms of making things larger than life, but also remembering that, we're not used to as an audience in Australia for having sort of been able to speak about yourselves and really prop yourself up. But knowing, having eaten your cakes firsthand at a wedding, I know that you put a lot of love, care, and attention, and you certainly do rise above as a tall poppy for all the great reasons. Tell me, look, you mentioned that uh, it's been passed down from generation to generation. Is this some sort of, like, when you see the movies or those tales where, like, the great grandmother and the grandmother and the mother are all in the house together, or all handing down this, like, old parchment of paper that's been written on for centuries? Is this kind of like your family legacy of sorts?
Do you know what? It's kind of funny that you say that, and I'm sure that my parents will be listening to this. So, as a child, I grew up, watching my grandparents cook. My mother did bake, not this kind of type of baking, but that old school kind of style baking. And we actually do have like an old school scrapbook, which has got like recipe cutouts and handwritten recipes. So. Both of my grandmothers hand wrote quite a lot of their recipes. I couldn't tell you if they've been maybe passed down from their mothers, but I would expect that some of those probably are. So I do definitely have recipes that, are definitely, I guess, vintage, if that's the kind of term that you want to
That's
use. I
that's
don't
fantastic.
use them for my cake baking because cake baking and decorating has evolved quite a lot over the years, but
Mm.
definitely some of those recipes get pulled out, and just like any kind of baked good, which is the thing that I love about baking, is that there's an element of nostalgia or memory that comes back. So there are certain baked treats that we definitely enjoyed as kids at our grandparents' place, and my brother and my cousins could probably tell you that there's certain things we'll go, oh yeah, that takes you right back to when you were a kid in grandma's house.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that that's actually really true, because that's obviously been, I guess, in some ways parodied. In other ways, there's been serious movies about other legacies in the world, in the cooking world or the baking world, that has been done that. So I love that you need to now get a safe so you can lock it in a safe one day when it gets passed down to you, so that, it can protect it and, I don't know, get insurance for it or something. Because that sounds like it's definitely the secret to your success. Now, tell me, look, I read a lot of Facebook groups out there, and I'm sure many of our listeners right now are members of several of the Australian or perhaps international Facebook groups that are dedicated to weddings and to finding vendors and so forth. And often, as you're probably very well aware, for some reason, the going currency is not the legal tender of the country that they're inquiring from, but apparently, we're paying in arms and legs and limbs and so forth. And so you and I both know that that's not an appropriate currency, and that money is what we prefer to be paid. But at the same time, a lot of people don't want to pay sometimes for certain things because it's hard to see the value in what is being prepared, and in your case, what is being baked. So, really tell us, what are you paying for when you're buying a custom cake?
I'll talk on behalf of what I personally do because obviously I don't know. I've got some idea working in wholesale patisserie and working in other bakeries and things. But for me, firstly is quality ingredients. So the reason why a lot of the cakes taste like they taste is because I use good quality butters. I use good quality chocolate. I use good quality fondant, quality colors. So usually good quality ingredients, which I think is definitely key. We were talking just before this podcast, about feeling that pinch, and the cost of me buying a lot of ingredients has increased quite significantly. Even if I look at the cost of butter from when I started only, almost 3 years ago now to now, it's almost doubled in price. So the
Wow.
cost of buying those good quality ingredients has definitely led to an increase, but and that needs to be facilitated or factored in somewhere. So that's the first
Mm,
part of it. But definitely the biggest cost, particularly for a wedding cake, is the time that it takes. So the very first when I first met you, so that wedding that we were at together, that cake I think from memory was to feed I don't know, 120, 140 guests. So it was quite a big
mm,
cake. 2 days for me to put that cake together. And that's just me. So I'm not
wow.
working in a factory or a kitchen, pretty much a whole day of just pretty much baking the actual cake and preparing all the decorations that go on. And then the day of the wedding, I spend the morning making all the buttercreams and piecing it all together. And then obviously I come to the venue and I put it together. But time is definitely the biggest commodity that people are paying for. And I guess the other costs that a lot of people probably don't factor in are those fancy things. So Instagram and Pinterest for me as a creative person are fantastic. So I get
Mm,
sent a lot of photos from brides and grooms for what they want. And then when we go sourcing all of those little bits and pieces, so, the gold or the glitter and the custom cake toppers and particular flowers, all of those things start to make add on to the price. So for
mm.
me personally, it's not like a wedding tax. I don't really believe in charging people more because it's a wedding. But when people realize that it takes, sometimes 2 days, up to 2 days to put a cake together, and you've got all of the tools that you need to have to make that cake, and sometimes I've got to go out and buy extra, particular things. So like a
Mm,
buttercream
mm.
comb to get a particular effect, or maybe a particular color, or whatever it might be. I've got to factor all of those things in. So they're the little things that I think a lot of people don't think about when they get a cake or they order a cake.
Yeah, no, it's look, as one creative to another, I can obviously, there's an understanding between you and I that absolutely what you're providing is not only all of those quality ingredients and the quality of service that you're providing, the Pinterest photos turned into reality, and it's not just like the people are just buying from like you go to the bakery and you get like those lookbooks and you go, I want that exactly kind of thing. And so because of all that, plus all of your time, the knowledge has been handed down from generation to generation, all these years you spent in the kitchen with your grandmother and your mother and so forth, like all of that is still an essence of part of the reason why it costs so much. And look, I don't think anybody wants to have a bad cake for their wedding day. I mean, if they are interested in having cake, I don't think anyone says, yeah, like if we can skimp on something, we'll just make sure it's really dry and whatever else like that. No one wants that. And so to get that kind of quality, particularly one thing that I think another cake maker has mentioned to me once, I might have read it somewhere, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also the quality of the craftsmanship that goes into it as well determines its ability to actually stay as it is being displayed for sometimes 2-3 hours in a night.
Mm. Yeah, so there's a lot of, I guess, hidden stuff that happens. So that particular cake that you tried was a 3-tier cake. Within
Mm,
each one of those layers is multiple dowels. So that's what we would call them. So whether they're wood or straw or whatever that they might be, kind of in terms of shape. Underneath each one of those layers is also another cake board. So the whole structure itself is stable. And then there's usually one big central dowel that holds that whole cake together. Because, like you said, it needs to be structurally sound. It gets moved from wherever it is into the kitchen to be then kind of disassembled and cut. And yeah, sometimes, especially in Australia, the cake has to last sometimes the weather and the elements.
mhm.
So yeah, there's lots of different things that definitely go into it. It's not just you can go down to the shop and buy yourself a tub of fondant and a pre-made cake and kind of slap something together. I mean, you could do that, but
Yeah,
whether
so
it
you could totally
survives
do that.
is
Yeah, I mean, if you want your wedding
is
sponsored
probably
by a
another thing.
yeah, like a Woolworths mud cake for everyone. Like, I mean, everyone loves Woolworths mud cake, but I mean, how many people want that for their wedding? I don't know. Totally up to you. But all the weddings that I mean, it's been, look, I've done, to date as of this recording, I've done, over about 120 weddings so far. And in the last 3 years, I can confidently say that only about 10 of those have not had a cake. Or they've not had a cake in the traditional sense of, the flour cake, whatever. They've had like some other arrangement of tiers of something that's meant to resemble a cake. So at the end of the day, even if it's not the kind of cake that you bake, the idea of having something to centerpiece, to give away, to
Yeah.
be tiered, it's still a central part of what we do in today in Australia in particular, but I would argue most Western countries. And so as part of the celebration, so a cake really isn't going away anytime soon. So I think there is a really good note to ponder on, which is, yeah, all those things you're not seeing in the background, and also just knowing how big of a cake it is for 120 people versus even something as benign as say 130 or 140 or 150. I think it's there's a lot that goes into it. So I certainly hope people listening, just believe us when we say that limbs just aren't a good currency anymore. Unfortunately, the
Yeah,
Australian
I
dollar
can't
is
do much,
much.
unfortunately, with one of those.
Now, tell me, look, you mentioned before that you get a lot of ideas from people proactively, them saying, oh, I saw this on Pinterest, I saw this on Instagram, I saw this from perhaps another cake maker who perhaps, but they really vibed with you. And so they're willing to, or maybe you're in the area. So obviously it makes more sense to get a cake from you versus across the country. So tell me, even what are two things here? One, what are some of the sort of the most popular ideas and decorations for cakes and so forth that people present to you, or that you often find yourself doing? And then two, more interestingly, in fact, what are some of the most like grandest ideas and cakes you've put together?
So in terms of popularity, I feel like that I do have a very niche type of cake that I do. I'm quite upfront with brides and grooms. I've been definitely given some amazing cake ideas, and I was like, wow, I wish that I could make that. So for example, I don't really do a lot of fondant work, particularly as in cakes that are covered in fondant. So I do
Mm,
a lot of small handmade decorations. You've probably seen some of the kids' cakes and things that I do. But
mm,
there are certain things or techniques that I know that I can't do, and I definitely wouldn't want to be kind of test running that for someone's wedding, let alone agreeing to do that anyway. So I think that with knowing that I always say to people I specialize in buttercream style cakes. What I've seen that has been popular probably over last year has been that semi-naked type of finish, so where you can kind of see the cake through.
mm, mm,
People are looking for quite classic designs now. They're not really looking for complicated, lots and lots of stuff on a cake. They kind of want something that is beautiful, but not like an eyesore, I guess. They don't want something that's, so in your face. That's what
mm.
I've kind of found. I don't know, what you probably see,
No,
but
I
definitely
definitely
with
resonate
a
with
lot of
that.
the cakes I make are very, classic, kind of clean cut, very simple. They might have half a dozen, flowers or decorations on them, a little bit of gold kind of sprinkled on, a really plain sort of cake topper, nothing over the top or anything. So that's what a lot of that I find is just kind of my style. So that's probably
Hmm.
why I've done a lot of those sorts of cakes.
Hmm.
Probably like in terms of the grandest that like what that I've actually made or that I've seen.
That you have done personally.
That I have done is definitely it was that one wedding cake that, I did when, you were
Oh,
emceeing that wedding.
really? Wow,
Yeah,
I'm
it was
so
just
glad to
the
have
big
seen it.
but it was just the biggest cake, that I'd done, and it's probably has been the biggest cake that I've done, period, for any wedding. It was for me, it was quite grand because it was just so. The photos don't really give it, and the photos
Mm.
never give any justice to the perception and the size of everything, but just the sheer size of that cake. Like I remember when I was making that bottom tier, putting my head like right next to it so that you could kind of gauge the grandeur and the size of that cake. Like it was
Were
just
you
so
nervous
huge.
putting it together?
Oh yeah, every single time I put a cake together, and I don't think I think that most cake decorators are probably the same because you care so much, you put so much energy and so much effort in, and you want
Mm,
it to be amazing because it's someone's special day. You want it to
mm.
be perfect, and you want them to look at those photos and go, wow, that was, it was exactly what I wanted, or it was better than what I wanted. So I'm always shaking like a leaf, particularly when I've got to put, the smaller, intricate details together, because you just know that you don't have room for really much to go wrong. So,
No, you really don't. I've got to ask you the old well, I guess older tradition now. I guess in 2024, the concept of particularly in like sort of more Mediterranean weddings where you keep the top layer and you put it in the freezer and you have it at some point in life, like my parents did, for instance. That I'm beginning to see that really go away. Am I getting the right vibe on that?
yeah, I've never. I always ask. So part of I guess the what you're paying for. We were talking about that before. Is that there's a lot of different questions and things that I want to ask and know, and the bride and groom might not understand why I need to know that. But that's one of the questions I usually ask: is that are you planning on keeping the top tier, or would you like me to make you a smaller cake that you can freeze and keep and pull out on your first wedding anniversary, because that's when you're supposed to have it, right? Is your
Yeah, I
first
think
wedding
so.
anniversary. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when we got married, we didn't even do that. We went back to the same cake maker and we got them to make us the same cake that we had,
Oh, that's
and we
nice.
used the same cake topper that we had on our wedding cake, on that cake. So, just as I guess a little bit of a celebratory thing. But no, I haven't had any bride and grooms who've said to me, yes, we would like a to keep the top tier. So
Mm,
it
mm.
is a bit of a fading tradition.
I've noticed it. Yeah, definitely. I'm not having to worry about it as much. Although still, I will always ask my couples to make sure that they cut at the bottom tier rather than the top. For many different reasons, stability being one, the biggest one. But of course, knowing that maybe perhaps I'm cutting into the wrong tier if they happen to tick that box and I wasn't aware of it. So, but yeah, I have noticed it a lot. It's not really happening as much. Maybe only about 10% of my couples in the last 3 years have done it. So I definitely resonate a lot what you said about the sort of the naked look of the cakes. I'm seeing a lot of alternative style cakes out there, particularly those watermelon style cakes are coming back. I know it's different to your
Yeah,
particular
and
style,
cheese.
but
Do you know what cheesecake? So like literally not cheesecake, but
yeah,
cheese layers
I've
of
had this.
cheese that
I've had
people
this
can
twice
go.
now. Twice I've had two weddings like this, and it is amazing because yeah, you're able to get those platters that come out afterwards, and people are just munching and all these different types of styles of cheese that you've never seen before. So it's really great to see. I'm sure you're really inspired by the fact that there's a lot of different artisans out there now that are really taking the concept of that centerpiece, quote unquote, cake, and turning it into something that perhaps isn't the conventional style, but is something that
Mm.
sort of represents the flavor of the craft regardless. Have there been, on that sort of note, have you seen, I'm glad you brought up the cheese one because I think people are in the audience like, really? And they're like going to Pinterest right now to find out examples. But have you seen any others? Because I'm going to throw one in the mix. I've recently had a cannoli tower cake.
Oh, well, I've done a cupcake tier, like I guess, wedding cake as such. So I had couples that did cupcakes, which I guess in sight and light of COVID, it's probably a really COVID safe way to do a cake. I think it's, you've really got to want to make sure that you've got enough cake for everyone. That would probably be my only concern. But yeah, the cheese one is definitely a big one that I've seen. I think from when we traveled back overseas, it's definitely becoming quite a big thing over in those European, style countries. So when we were back in Ireland, my husband's Irish, we were back there, and yeah, these cheese cakes as such were like a thing that's kind of happening. So, but I do see that there's probably such thing, as I've seen donuts and,
Oh,
all
yes,
of those
yes,
kinds of
donuts,
things.
yeah.
I'm sure you could kind of do anything really if that's your flavor.
I think that's the nice things about weddings, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I have a lot of couples. I'm sure that have you. The ask it's kind of the same similar questions like, can we do that? Is that possible? And I mean,
Mm,
if it's as long as it's not unrealistic or completely, impossible, it's like, yeah, like of course you can. It's your wedding. Like I know I don't mean to sound so matter of fact about it because obviously we do so many weddings, so we don't try not to be so whatever. But certainly, like I do try to remind my couples a lot. Like it's your day. Like there's certainly
mm.
recommendations we would have, but at the end of the day, it's your day. So you do as you like. I'm curious because I remember when I saw the cake that you put together, you were very careful about making sure that, and I'm sure this was much to do about the pre-plannings you mentioned just before about what goes into making the cake and design in the first place. When designing a cake, how important or not important or more of an emphasis, less of an emphasis do couples typically put into hey, our florist and our decor and our stylist has put together this particular arrangement or they're using these flowers, etc. We would like to make sure that the cake represents this or is integrated in this way and our styling is somewhat reflected upon the cake design. Do you often get that question?
Yeah, it's very couple dependent. So you've got those couples, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. That you've got those couples that are really hyper organized and they want everything to be, they've got a very clear vision about what they want, and they know they're very particular. And yes, there's been many weddings where I've done cakes where I have traveled out to the florist that's done their bouquets and is doing all of their reception flowers and collected specific flowers to put on their cake, right through to other couples who are like, I think something like this would be nice, or what do you recommend?
Mm.
And we're happy as long as it's kind of just white and maybe a bit of pink or something. So I've really had quite a big span of couples that I've worked with and that's kind of what it looks like. And I think it's just depends on what they're like. You've got
Yeah.
those people that are really organized, and you've got people that are it's not that they're unorganized, it's just that it's not that much of a importance to them. They're just happy to have a great tasting cake that looks beautiful, and I guess they kind of trust you in some ways and just say, we trust you to do what it is that you do.
No, it's an excellent point. I always am a big advocate for trusting vendors. At the end of the day, you're paying us already for. There was something that sparked at the very beginning of our conversation, so carry that through to the end, and trust us with that. I think is a really great message to leave with. But we're
Mm.
not leaving you just yet because I have one more question about cakes, and then we've got a couple of quick fires I'd love to throw at you. I promise nothing too scary, but I would love to know what is your favorite cake flavor and what is the most popular one that you get asked to do?
I knew you were going to ask me this. The flavor palette, I had loads and loads of different flavors that I kind of trialed when I very first opened this business, when I was only doing cupcakes, really.
Mm.
So I had a pretty good idea which ones would be popular and not. I'm still vanilla. I'm the same with ice cream. I'm very vanilla. I like a classic vanilla cake. It's still my favorite, and I don't mind a little bit of something additional to it, but I still like, a good plain vanilla, good quality vanilla cake.
Mm.
In terms of what's popular, across, I guess, all the different types of cakes that I make, vanilla and chocolate is always popular, because I do a lot of kids' cakes. So I think because they're just kind of stock standard flavors, a lot of parents don't want to venture out and do anything too crazy. But what's quickly becoming the most popular flavor is red velvet with a cream cheese filling.
Yeah.
If you have a really good quality recipe, which I am so grateful that I have, thanks to doing a course at the Australian Patisserie Academy,
Oh, wow.
that recipe that I've got is just, it's amazing. And anyone who's had it is like, this is my favorite flavor. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, folks, you've heard it here first. I think you need to, if you're still looking for cakes, I think you need to try out that award-winning, world inspiring red velvet. I've had a number of cakes recently with red velvet, and I think it's a very popular flavor, to the point where when people cut into it and they go, "Oh, it's red velvet," you kind of wanted to make sure that it really tastes good, because otherwise you get so disappointed if it's really bad.
Yeah, I think because there's a common misconception. People think that red velvet is just chocolate cake with red food coloring in it, and that's not actually the case. It's a total different blend. But
Yeah.
if you were to ask me this question, Nathan, like a good couple of years ago, I
Mm.
would have said to you salted caramel, because that was the flavor
Mm.
at the time that just seemed to be really popular. Lots of people were doing, salted caramel cake with salted caramel filling in it, so
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing. I love how trends continue changing. That's what I love the most about
mm,
this industry. We just got to keep up with it and roll with the punches and keep giving the people what they want. Let them eat cake,
yeah.
as someone once said. So I've got a couple of questions for you. Love just the first thing that comes to mind before we wrap up, and we can find out how people can find out how to taste your wonderful cakes at their weddings. First question: what is one question that couples should ask you when they want to work with you?
One question that they should ask me. Oh wow, what a good question to ask. I think that they should probably ask about what the day will look like, or what information do I need to know, so that I don't have to basically bother them or ask them anything leading up to their wedding. So, what information should I know? Do you know what I mean, about the day? So, like, what time are they planning on being at the venue? What time will their guests be there? So, all of that sort of information that happens. So, those kind of time frame logistics is helpful to me.
No, perfect. Love that. And one other final question, very philosophical. What is your why?
Look, we were talking at the start of this about cakes evoking memories, or baking evoking memories, and I love what I do. And my favorite thing to hear back is when people will remember. They go, "Oh, last year you made whatever cake, or you made this cake for my friend, or my mom, or my whatever." There's something about memories that are created around baked goods, and I think that that's the thing that really drives me, and why I love what I do.
That's fantastic. I absolutely love that answer. Amanda, look, I could continue talking about one of my favorite things, which is cakes, because I always
I'm
get
sure.
very excited when the cake comes out, and always make sure I grab a slice before I head home at the end of the evening as well. But in the meantime, how can people find you on the interwebs? How can they get in touch? How can they look at all your wonderful cakes and potentially, book you and get a tasting together and so forth?
My website is amandabakes.com.au. All my socials are on there as well. So I'm on Instagram, which is really great, easy way to have a look and view all of the cakes. You can also see my Instagram feed on my website as well. I'm on Facebook, so you can have a look there. So facebook.com/amandabakes.com.au. And I'm also connected in with Avia as well. So Avia Weddings, and I've got a profile on there, so you can have a look specifically at wedding cakes and read some of the wonderful reviews from some of the brides and grooms that I've worked with.
Fantastic. Well, Amanda, I will leave you back. I'll leave you to being a super mom and a volunteer and a world-class baker. But in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing your insights, and I cannot wait to taste another one of your cakes in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nathan, for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Just As Planned Wedding Podcast. Please like and subscribe to let me know that you want more videos just like this one. And of course, please follow us on our socials at Just As Planned Wedding on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more expert insights to help your wedding go just as planned.